You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, please share, follow, comment, like, subscribe, all of those things wherever you're liking this or wherever you're listening to this or watching this. If you want to take the conversation beyond just the podcast, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. As we're kind of ending the year here, we're starting to think about, next year, right? And I know, once the holidays become, are upon us, we get to sit back and go, man, all right, some reflection on what we accomplished this year, and then some forward thinking into what we want to accomplish next year. So I got my friend Alex Buker from Equity Builder Roofing. He's a salesperson at Equity Builder Roofing, and I think that he has a great framework and does a great job of this. And so Alec has a unique story, though. Alec, welcome to the show. How did you get into roofing?
Well, my story is kind of funny. I've kind of worked in sales for the last 10 years in different industries, but pretty heavy in the car business. Yes, I was one of those dreaded car salesmen that most people are scared of. But I worked in the car business for about 8 years. Felt like I knew it really well. It was kind of the dealership I was working at last. I was kind of top of the food chain. Number one salesman about every month. And I had a friend that was actually looking into the roofing industry. I had no knowledge of it whatsoever. And it's funny, the guy who's the VP of this company, I reached out to him and, to help my buddy out, ask some questions, I like to, kind of help people, migrate to make them happy too. And, I got those questions answered, and within like 2 to 3 weeks after that, my buddy who's the VP of this company calls me and he's like, "Hey, I've got this position I want to run by you. You'd probably be a good fit for. You have some time next week where you could come down and meet me and the owner and we could discuss it?" I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's see what's up. I didn't have anything to lose, right? So I did that, and they really piqued my interest. I really liked the owner. I really liked the mindset. He really he spoke my language pretty early on, and just kind of went for it. I mean, I left everything that I knew really well and was just trusting my gut, and it's worked out good so far.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So, and you came into this business, what was it, spring of 2020? So right when COVID hit?
Yeah, basically I started in March 1st last year, and like 3 weeks into this thing, I'm on a roof doing I think it was like the first or second actual claim inspection that I did. And I'm inspecting, in the middle of inspecting it, the governor of Indiana was on Fox 59 saying he was shutting the state down. And I'm like, what do I do? And it was crazy. It was a crazy deal.
So that was your first, coming into it, spring of 2020, a couple weeks in, I guess, getting that notification, things are getting shut down. How did you do your first year?
Actually, believe it or not, did $1 million in sales my first year. I had signed my last contract on the last day of the year. So being a closer, it's not over till it's over, right?
That's right.
So it was like 8:30 at night or something that I signed that last contract, and yeah, it was cool. It was a good
What
experience.
what was your expectations coming into this industry? What kind of goal did you set for yourself? Did you set a sales goal of $1 million? Did you set a income goal of a certain amount? How did you, when you came into the business, how did you, determine what your goal was?
Um, I'm a there's two thoughts there with goal setting. There's the people that say, set this reasonable, attainable goal. And then there's people that say, set a goal that's just out of reach. And I'm a big believer in the just out of reach thing. For me, just out of reach was way out of reach because I didn't know anything about this stuff. Like I was green as green could be, I knew a roof looked like this and that was about it. But I, the people that I was working with in this company said the million mark was kind of it's kind of the benchmark for you've made it. You're a producer, and that's kind of what I was attaining. I didn't look at it as a monetary thing because I knew the money was going to come from producing that. It was more of like a semi-prideful, like, hey, you've made it kind of deal. That's why I looked at it.
Yeah. So being one of the top salespeople in the car business, month after month, year after year, when you came into roofing, you're like, I want to be one of the top in this business. Is that more of the way you did it?
Yeah. Not only to feel good for myself, but, I like giving back too. I always enjoyed, helping new salespeople in the car business kind of figure things out. And I'm doing that now with this. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, now that you've got a couple of years under your belt this year, you have an improvement in those sales. You're on track for what this year?
1.5 million. I'm right at the cusp of 1.5. I'm trying to do a big December push. I know a lot of people slow down in the winter. I don't really do that. I can breathe better because it's not super hot. So I'm actually trying to do another quarter here going into December to put me at like 1.750. So
nice. So an increase over year over year. So when you started this year, you looked at, first year did $1 million. Did you stretch that goal to 1.5? Is that what you did, or did you stretch it even further?
I stretched it at 1.5. And then I kind of hit, I knew that 1.5 was kind of creeping, and I was tracking to where that was going to happen. So I kind of not a little past mid-year, I'm like, I'm going to just stretch just a little bit more, just push a little bit more. People, a lot of people, they hit their goal and they just stop, and because they're bored. I just wanted something a little more, keep things interesting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it fun, and
does.
you can get customers involved in that stuff too, like, hey, I'm trying to hit this goal, can we help you out, that kind of thing. So
yeah. So I know that you've put a lot of thought into a lot of this stuff, right? You've developed your own kind of manual and everything, like, so you're a very you're a thinker, right? You like to, you maybe have like maybe an engineering brain a little bit, but you're in sales, right? If that's a good way to put it.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I thought was fun. And so, this episode is for the salespeople, but I think it's also for the owners to understand this concept of what you're doing and making sure that, like when their salespeople are setting their goals and you're helping them set their goals. Would you say that setting your goals is that's step one?
Absolutely. You gotta have you got to have that goal first, and then you put a plan with that goal to track towards it.
Nice. And that's, we talk about all that, right? It's kind of like, I talk about it like goals are like, where you want to go, but then that plan of action is like the wind in your sails, right? It's getting you towards that goal. Then you just got to steer a little bit, right? You got to go, all right, we're off track a little bit. Let's move a little to the left. Let's move a little bit to the right. We're managing that, but we know where we're going. We know where we want to end up. So you said that you're also starting to mentor salespeople. How do you go about having the conversation about goal setting with them?
Well, it's twofold. From a monetary standpoint, I've always hated I need to make, or I want to make this much money, goal setting, because when you do that, there's no focus in it. There's no purpose, there's plenty of financial gurus that'll say, like, when you have a financial goal, you need to give your money a job. Like, okay, I want to make six figures. Well, what does that really mean? What is that six figures going to do for you in that? Like, you got to have that mindset. You don't just blindly be like, I want to make $100,000. Why? Like, you got to have that why. And then, as the other side of this is tracking and plotting toward getting you there. In our world, it's, how much revenue per deal, you've got how many claims, you got variables on, claims getting denied, claims getting bought, partial denials. There's so many little variables, and you got to factor all that in to be efficient.
Definitely. Let's start with people's whys, right? I think that's an important factor to hone in on. When you set your goal, what is your why? And then what are some other whys that you've heard that are like, yep, that's a good one. You're nailing this. You're really understanding of the why.
Sure. Well, last year, my why was to kind of set myself up to buy my first house. I bought a house in May. I tell people all the time, and it may not sound like much to anybody. It's a big deal to me because I grew up poorer than you can imagine. But if you would have told me I was going to buy a $250,000 house with a 50 by 60 pole barn on 4.5 acres, I would have told you were crazy, but I still, set my sights in that direction. That was my why last year. This year, it's been working towards that. A couple things on the house have changed, and I'm kind of on like a debt-free mission. That's kind of my deal. But otherwise, people want to help family, which is great. Me personally, I'm actually working towards buying and building a cabin for my mom to live on that property. So that's kind of like that's the next thing I'm working towards. And there are little things like that, whether it's paying for kids' school, like I get all that stuff. Everybody's got a different thing. You just got to have that why for sure.
Here's what I like about what you're doing there is that you're bringing it into a very specific focus. A lot of people's whys will be like you were saying about the dollars they want to earn, right? Or something like that, where there's no real specific purpose behind that, right? So your first why was you wanted to buy your own home. Like that's a real serious why, man. Like that's right. That, and it's measurable, right? You can go and start shopping for homes, right? You can start going on, realtor.com or whatever and Zillow and flipping around and looking for stuff. And and seeing what your potential outcome will be if you put in the work, right? And so, and now, becoming debt free. But becoming debt free may even be too broad, right? You may have very specific debt and very specific dollar amounts that you want to be knocking out, right? Like, building the cabin on the property. That's another very specific thing. You could get very specific on the dollar amounts that will take, right? Like, and the reasoning behind it. You had mentioned family. Well, I want to do this for my family.
Yeah,
it's too broad, man. In my opinion, right? Like,
no, you're absolutely right. Like I got 3 daughters, and I'm kind of late in the game. I have 2 older, and one really young one, and like I've got to hit the fast forward button on college stuff. All my kids are smart. My older 2 are brains way better than I was in school. Like, and I just see that capability. So I'm like, okay, well, your dad's made these mistakes with, spending money on college that he didn't need and stuff. I'm going to lead you in that right direction. I want to set you on a good path as far as, college. Everybody knows about the college debt crisis and what impact it's had on us. I want my kids to not have any college debt, but still have a career and be happy. It's a big deal.
It is. And those are other things that are measurable, right? You can put that into focus over the next, 5 years or 10 years or whatever it comes down to be. And you could say, I need, not want, I need, right? That boat is a want.
Yep.
Boat is a want, man. The things like that are wants that it's like, I'll be all right without
it. If it happens. Yeah.
If it happens, great, right? That's not the best way to, to really hone in on what you really want to do. And then because on the other end of this is action.
Yep.
And boy, if you're not taking the right action, you're not going to hit those goals, right? And I know, so some of the, you have some goals for success. What are some of those things that the actions that you put into those goals for success?
In this business, it's all, as especially in the storm side of things, it's activity. That's what it's all about. If you have enough activity, it really doesn't matter. Like, all the other factors don't really matter as much, because the activity will lead you down the path regardless. I'm a big proponent, and it's something that was really hard for me to figure out in the beginning, but it's part of the reason I put it in the manual, because I don't want to see people hit their head and be stressed like I was in the beginning as bad, because man, I was those first couple months. But it's all about doing the right activities and when and how much. You have to look at all those things, and you can set yourself up in this line of work to not always have to work, 60, 70 hours a week, make great money, but you have to do the right things at the right times always. And you have to stick to it like it's the law, and it works.
So where did, this isn't something that I think it's not as talked about in roofing sales, but when, in other sales, kind of positions, which you've had in the past, this is like, they have it dialed in, very scientific, right?
Yeah.
How did you framework this? Where did that experience, was that experience from past sales positions that now you're like, oh, I look at the way that we frameworked it in car sales, and now I framework it in roofing, and now boom, it's off and running.
Yeah. In the car business, I mean, we knew that, they call them ups in the car business. Ups is when you show up on the lot and salesman comes out and scares you. Uh, but we knew that, lot traffic, meaning you come on the lot, there's a 20% closing ratio statistically across the country. So that means I got to talk to 5 people to sell 1 car a day, on average. Now, sometimes it's a little more than that, sometimes it's less, but that's the average. I like to look at the worst, not so worst case scenario, but hey, if it's 1 out of 5 and you're doing 1 out of 5, great. If it's 1 out of 3, even better. If you structure things that way, it just makes your life easier. Like in sales it can be a high stress thing, but I try to, a lot of the things in the manual I put in there because there's ways to keep your stress level down and really enjoy this if you just follow a good system,
Yeah. And that's what's, like in the car business, it's like, man, they know and track this stuff on a very granular level, right?
Oh yeah.
Like how many calls you need to make for this and how many this for that. And they know this, like you're saying, across all industry averages, right? Like, and that's where they're basing this activity from. People don't share that in roofing a lot of times. And I don't think a lot of contractors track it well.
No, and I told my owner, when I was making this manual, like, there's really no stuff out there that like really gives a guy, especially a green pea, a gauge to know you're doing a good job. And like, it boggled my mind because it's a really great industry. There's tons of money a guy can make, but like when you're green and, like when I looked into this, like, it just seems so like foreign to me. This whole industry seemed foreign to me. I'm like, I just don't get it. Like that just going door to door, sell roofs. It just sounded weird to me. I don't know why, but when I got in it and figured it out, it's so simple. It's just like, if you figure out that basic stuff, it's so simple. But I did the manuals. It's a big deal. I mean, like it's a roadmap and people need that. I mean, especially green peas. I just came back from a roofing conference, or not a conference, a training class down in Florida. And I was sitting there in a restaurant down in New Smyrna. I was talking to this new guy, had been doing sales since May. And, I was kind of told him what I'd done and stuff. And he kind of told me that, he struggled with this or that. And I just like exploded on this guy. And I'm like, some of the stuff in the manual, I'm like giving this guy nuggets because I hate seeing people struggle, when it can be easy.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like, eyes open, like deer in headlights, like, oh my gosh, like that's such a simple, easy, I can change that really quickly thing. He was really excited. So I was glad to see that.
That's the power in it, right? When you have some introspection on what is working and what isn't working, and really kind of when you look at sales in terms of metrics, right? Activity metrics, key performance indicators. When you can break it down and just say, hey, I need to be doing this, enough of this, enough of this, enough of this, and enough of this. And all of that together creates that high activity level that you had mentioned earlier. And now what falls out of that activity level is the revenue, that your closing revenue, right? You don't even, it's something that you don't have to focus on or think about. It just rains that, right? Like it just falls out of that activity level. So let's talk about that a little bit. So now a salesperson has their why, and I want to buy a new house. It's going to take, I need a $50,000 down payment or whatever that is, right? And now I have a very clear goal and a clear why as to what I'm going to do. And then we work that number backwards. Well, all my other bills are this amount, right? And all of my, I want to have a little money to go on vacation. I want to take the take my spouse out, to a couple of, nice dinners, and I want to take the kids to a water park or something this year. We'll build that in. And now we're in an income range where it's like, okay, now we got everything covered. Now, what do I have to close to make that happen? Stretch that a little bit for some comfort level, right? Just in case some claims or some jobs are smaller than others. Now you have that number.
Sure.
You got that number now. Now we need to figure out those activities that you need to do. How do you like to break it down? Do you break it down monthly, quarterly, daily, weekly? What's a time frame, a good time frame? And maybe different activities have different time frames, I guess, but what are some of how do you look at it in those time frames of activities?
The closest answer I can tell you is yes, all the above. So it's all of those things. So how often am I tracking things? Every single day? Like, here, let me grab my notepad, since I'm old school and I have a notepad all the time. And I don't know if it'll come through in the video, but I'm I've got lists of crap and how I track stuff here.
So just notebook level. In the notebook, what are some of the things that you're tracking?
Yeah. So I don't know if this will show up. It may not. But so this page says claims, and then the date when I wrote it now has all my claims. So the basis of how I track stuff is I personally recommend to anybody that's going to do this to have build up to the level of having 20 claims going at any given point. And the reason I say that is, and it's really simple, like math stuff. If you have 20 claims in any given month going, you're going to have claims that get approved, denied, partially denied, and you put those all in little categories, right? And what you find is from an income standpoint, let's say your average roof job is $10,000, and you're making $1,000 off that. You get 10%. If you got 20 claims, 50% of those get approved. There's a $10,000 income. The other 10, if half of that 10 gets denied, well, maybe they're denied, but you can turn them around in your downtime. Maybe it's a full decline. You're setting yourself up to have enough activity that you're always making money. You're keeping your stress level down, and you're not when I tell people, I'm a door knocking machine, that's my bread, and how I make money. The worst thing in the world is when you got, instead of 20 claims, you got 2, and you're just sitting there sweating at a door that people that have never met you, this is their first impression of you, and you're just sitting there will you let me look at your roof? If you structure things and you have enough things going on, people will gravitate towards people that are relaxed and low key, and if you don't want me to look at your roof, no big deal kind of thing. I'd love to. There's a lot of psychology in there that I focus on. And it doesn't matter whether it's the initial period where you're trying to get on a roof. You're trying to, get them to file the claim. That confidence speaks volume, and people just naturally gravitate towards you because, they want to gravitate towards winners. But that's basically what I do. I figured out that I wanted to set myself up to have enough wins to where I'm fed, I'm relaxed. If a customer's a jerk, or they part ways and go to some dirty roofer in town, I'm just okay, no big deal. that's a lot more fun to sell that way, you know?
It is a lot more fun to sell that way. Right?
Sure.
It is challenging to sell out of desperation. It is so challenging. And I love that you said that if you have enough activity, right? If you have enough activity, then you have the confidence to turn a job down, right? The confidence to, like, hey, I really don't feel that we're clicking, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. We're not in the right place. So let me let you go with someone else, right? Let me let you move on to another contractor, and that'll be fine. And that activity level that you're finding seems to be around that 20 claim mark. And so if you're managing 20 claims at a time, now you have that level of confidence that that the income that comes from that activity is going to get you to your revenue goals, so that now you feel relaxed. You don't have to let me up on your roof. I'm not desperate here. I'm here to try to help you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. So now that let's talk about a little bit of how you build up to that 20, right? Every year we're starting fresh, right? That's one of the fun things about the business, and one of the challenging things, right? Our numbers hit 0 on January 1. And so now we got to build that back up, and not that your pipeline isn't going to carry over in some way from year to year, but let's just talk about from scratch. How would you advise someone to get to that point? What are the activities that they can do to get them to that, to be able to manage those 20 claims at a time?
So, obviously in the beginning, like when you're green as grass, getting into this, that's basically all you're doing in the very beginning. But one of the things I bring up in the manual is, when to do stuff. So me particularly, downtime, mainly rain days, but downtime between adjuster meetings and stuff. I've always got this crazy notebook, and I'll drive around and look for older roofs. There's obvious signs, streaking, if the vents on them are beat up, shingles missing, what have you. And I bet you half of this book is addresses. I have more lists of addresses than I don't know what to do with. I mean, in just different towns. Like, I'm a firm believer, from a marketing standpoint, is once I'm finished in a neighborhood, I need to have another area that I can go to ready to go. I already know there's damage, of some kind there. And just always take advantage of downtime. If you're already out, your adjuster meeting went quick, or whatever, your inspections went quick, you're already there, but take note of it. I mean, it's really not hard to spend an hour of your life going, oh, that house has missing shingles, and take note of that. I mean, I bet I've got 1,000 addresses in 2 notebooks just from stuff like that.
And I've done a lot of real estate investing over the years, or a fair amount, but
sure.
We would call that driving for dollars.
Yeah. That's right? Exactly what it is.
You're driving for dollars and taking notes on the address, and taking down the address, taking notes on the address, maybe finding the owner, reaching out to them, maybe through a phone call, maybe knock the door, maybe, so there's a lot of activity that you could do from that. With that list of addresses, what's your plan of action on that? Now that you have, like, after you've built that list of addresses, what do you do? Do you go knock those doors? What's your plan of action on those?
It's really situational on one being how many claims I've got at any given point. If I'm really low, I may just go knock right away. If a house has got a few shingles blown off, I may just directly go knock that door because I have a talking point. Or sometimes we make lists and send marketing materials as an initial, like, soft touch. It's got my name on it already. It gets my name in their head before I show up, so it's not as weird, like you put a thought into somebody's head. I just did this. I sent some marketing material while I was in Florida for when I come back so I can attack it. But I do that. So hits the guy's mailbox. Within a couple of days, I'm showing up, doing the same door pitch as I do normally. But the guy's heard my name once. I put thoughts in his head about his roof. He's semi-engaged before I even show up. And then when I show up, I just talk to people like, normal and relaxed and get them engaged, and we're ready to roll. So it's really situational. Like, where I'm at claims wise, what I'm doing at that present moment,
That's one of the things that, measuring those, I refer to them as KPIs, key performance indicators, but measuring the claims that you're managing, right? So when, your goal is 20 at a time, you're always managing 20 at a time. That's keeping you at the level that you want to be at.
Yep.
Where's code yellow and where's code red? Code red, is code yellow 18 claims, 15 claims? And is code red, like, if you drop down to 10, you're like, we got to get this back on track?
I think if I was to give anybody advice, you have to gauge how well you are at developing business. My code red is like single digits. I don't really have a code yellow because, like, I don't want to sound like an arrogant guy, because anybody out there that wants help with door knocking, I would be glad to take a phone call or listen to your pitch or whatever. But, like, I can always turn it on, like I have, and my peers would say the same. Like, if I want to get 10 new claims this week, I can do that in a few days. It's not a problem. I can make that happen. Some people may not be at that level yet, and that's fine. It just takes a little bit of work, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't have the fear of developing business. I'm good at that. That's kind of my best quality, is business development. So if that answers your question.
Yeah. And so you have to figure it out personally is what I took from that, right? You have to know
what your build is.
Yeah. Where you're at, how your business is. If if it takes you some effort, if you're newer to the business and maybe your skill at the door isn't as good, then you may need to, if you see that needle drop at all, you better start getting at it. Right.
Sure.
But if you're more experienced and that, and you're very confident in your ability to fill that pipeline up, it doesn't have to be as much of a risk factor to you, right? Like, we'll get down. I got 10. Oh man, I guess I'll take next week and go put another 10 in the pipeline. Easy stuff, right? Like, so one of the things that you told me in talking about it, and I hear it as you're saying these things, is that in doing a lot of different sales positions in the past, what has been attractive to you and what's been kind of a revelation to you in roofing is that instead of those, I guess in relation to those in relation to other sales positions, you've been able to create predictable income in roofing.
Yeah, it's very much so. And all that really goes back to that claim management thing. If you know if you know what your average job is, and you'll only know that with time. If you figure out what your average job is and use that math, that's how you do that. Other industries, you can't do that. Like, in the car business, I could self-generate some business, through like social media and whatnot, but a majority of it was still, dealership driven.
Yeah.
And, you had to live at the dealership to get that business. And in this industry, the beautiful thing, and I think it's the only one that I know of. I mean, you really can just determine every aspect of your life, when it comes to work. You can hyper focus for 3 hours and get 3 or 4 claims, and that may make your week. It's awesome.
That's a great point, is that you're not relying on the lead flow of the company. You can go and you could go and hunt, right?
Yeah.
But it takes doing the right activities, maybe at the right time, which you talk about in your manual. So what are some things that you can highlight about the activities to do at the right time? Because that's something that a green salesperson or someone who might not, where we were talking about where things get scary when you're managing 15 claims or 10 claims, being able to do the right things at the right time are some of those, some of the things that a higher level salesperson knows maybe more intuitively than a newer person.
Yeah, I'll hit on a few different things. We'll kind of start with door knocking. The biggest thing I had to figure out with door knocking is you have to figure out what kind of neighborhood you're in. Are you in a white collar neighborhood? You're in a blue collar neighborhood. Your blue collar neighborhoods. Your house. It's not a derogatory thing. Like your Vinyl Village, kind of cookie cutter neighborhoods. Those are typically blue collar 8 to 5 people. So knocking at 9 a.m. to get those people, you're going to stress out because you're going to knock a ton of doors and get barely any results. Your white collar professional neighborhoods, like, brick and stone house neighborhoods, those neighborhoods, those people are home during the day. Those are retirement, people or professionals working from home, which we're seeing a lot from. So you can really, on the door knocking, you can, based on the neighborhood you're in, you have to drive around, kind of figure it out. You can figure out when you should be knocking here and when you should be knocking there. I like to have a couple different options as far as neighborhoods go, like have a blue collar, white collar neighborhood, close proximity. So, if I'm not doing so hot in here, I can go over here or vice versa. That's a good thing. And then the other thing is, like, going back to the claim side, your denial stuff, when it's, I'm in Indiana right now, the weather changes every 5 minutes. When it's sunny and nice out and I can get on roofs, I'm getting on roofs. I'm developing new business. I'm not fighting claims that got denied on nice days. I'm saving that for when there's a foot of snow on the ground or it's raining, when I can't do the other stuff, because you have to look at it. I've got several claims overturned. I'm pretty decent at that, but once it's been, denied at that beginning, it has a track for denial. So you don't know what's going to happen with that. Not to say you let that one go, because you don't, because some of them could be real easy, but you need to, as things are being taken out for denial, put new stuff in there to bridge that gap for what that other claim that got denied was, and then still work on that other stuff when you have spare time. That's a big deal. Like, I was doing it, and some of my peers that I've kind of helped train, like, during the summer, it's like super nice. The sun's out for like a week, and, people are like sending pictures to adjusters when it's nice out and all these people are home and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you worried about a $10,000 roof and you can go get $100,000 worth of claims this week? Like, you know. They're all claims are important, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really matter, in terms of like, you don't have to get those pictures in, on that day, because the adjuster is going to maybe read your email, or maybe that day, or maybe respond to you in 2 weeks, like that's kind of the nature, or they may not, and you have to have your homeowner yell at them so they pay attention. So it's like you gotta weigh all that stuff in.
That's a huge aha moment for some people, is when to be doing certain activities. That's great, man. And if the other side of that is, there's an opportunity cost that a lot of people don't think about. So the opportunity cost about going and taking those pictures on that nice sunny day when you could be knocking doors and getting more claims, you just took, that was that 8 hours or 20 hours or 30 hours that week or whatever it was. That was your opportunity to fill that pipeline, or to refill the pipeline. And you did the wrong thing at the wrong time. You did the wrong activity at the wrong time.
Can I throw something at you too? And if it's okay, I'm going to name drop on something, because I can't take credit for this, but some people in the industry may know Becca Switzer, the Reef Sales Mastery girl. She's really great and does a lot for the industry. I'm going to preach this just because it's really hard for somebody that's new to agree with this. And I'm sure there's some owners that are going to be like, what, when I say this, but I'm a big proponent of getting a bunch of inspections lined up and then circling back through those and doing them individually versus, doing every inspection on the spot right when you meet with a customer. Becca talks about this, and I'm going to give her credit because she came up with it. And why it's a good idea. Like, let's say you knock a door, and first when you knock, you do the inspection immediately. Let's say you do, it's a bigger house. The inspection takes you an hour. That house didn't have any damage, right? Then your head's in a bad space. You got to go get another one. It may be 6 o'clock. Your wife's calling you, asking why you're not home yet, all those things, versus stacking all these, 4 or 5 inspections, whether it's that day or the following day, however you want to do it. You can still do that in that same hours window. That's how you become hyper productive versus taking the easy, I got one, let's go, and you don't know if it's going to be anything or not. So I'm a volume activity guy, and I think Becca, preaches that, and I'll preach it too. Like, it's situational. Sometimes I'll inspect them on the spot, if I get spare time. I'm not saying I never do it, but it's a good idea to, stack a few and give yourself more of an opportunity to have deals. It takes the same amount of time.
Yeah. And if you go back to one of the things that you said earlier, like, hey, if you're in a blue collar neighborhood, you're knocking between 4 and 7, This is knocking time. Now you have, maybe you circle back in the morning when no one's home, and you do your inspections, in the morning while no one's home. And now you set the follow-up appointment when they're home between that 4 and 7 again. So now you've efficiently used that time. And we're able to put more deals in the pipeline. That's great advice. And shout out Becca Switzer for sure. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome. Can I throw out another little nugget in that door knocking thing?
Oh, sure, man.
It seems funny, but it's true. You take those, you were saying, the blue collar, you might circle back and do those inspections throughout, the day instead of during that knocking time. If you're in a new neighborhood, like you have no, history in there or whatever, that's good. But sometimes it's good depending on the neighborhood, especially for like higher end housing. I like to do at least one inspection during that time, when people are getting home. And the reason that is you got all these people driving in this neighborhood when they're getting off work and they see this big bearded ginger guy, doing stuff, and it makes people think. And they've seen me. They don't know who I am, but they've at least seen me. So, when I end up knocking their door, they're like, "Oh, you're that guy that was on so-and-so's house." So there's, some, familiarity, my neighbor did it, so maybe I will, kind of thing. Like, you got to think about that too.
I think that's a great point. And it is, I mean, honestly, if whether it's Becca or if you're, our friend Adam Bensman, the way that he talks about selling and just, Chuck Thoke and the rest of the, like a lot of the high level sales trainers in this industry, that is a big thing. It's familiarity, right? So, I mean, part of the pitch is, hey, we're doing, we got a claim approved with Bob and Judy down the street. You may have damage too, and we may be able to help you out, and utilizing, anchoring to that neighbor in the same way that you're talking about, or on build day, right? If you're out there on production day and you got, your company, your some flags in the yard and the trucks are out front and the wrapped equipped or a catch-all or right. And people are driving by and they're going, oh, and then when you show up with the logo on your shirt and you have a conversation with them, they've seen it already. They're familiar. Their neighbor is doing it. There's a higher level of trust that gets built. That's a gem, man. That's definitely important, an important part of it. So one of the other parts of this business that I think is really important is referrals.
Yes.
Right. So it kind of, to me, those things kind of go together, right? It's being up on the ladder and having those people see you and build familiarity. That's a way to break down those trust barriers, right? And get to that a much easier way, or the trust gets completely broken down on a referral, right? Or built up on a referral. The trust barrier gets broken down. You don't have to overcome as much in that situation. So now you're managing about 20 claims, 20 claims at a time. You're knocking efficiently. You're doing activities efficiently. You're doing your adjuster meetings, or you're working on your denied claims in an efficient manner. Also, a big piece of the puzzle is that referral part of it, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
The referral part is a big deal. Probably anywhere between 25 to 50% of my business. Once I've kind of got that pipeline up and going, you'll find that if you manage that, eventually you're not really knocking as much, and it really develops into a majority of your pipeline. Of course, after you ask for those things. Some guys preach, you gotta get one per deal, two per deal, whatever. I look for five, and I say that, and five sounds like a crazy number, but there's math behind that. It's kind of goes back to that car thing. So if I give myself, if I pursue 5 referrals from somebody, if 20% of those is a deal, that's one deal, versus if you just ask for one and that's not a deal, it's gone, and you've eliminated that stream of referrals. And what I've found is, usually you'll get a little better quality referrals in there. They won't just, sick their buddy on you just to appease you. And there's a lot of referral chains in my pipeline that started with this guy, and it's where, went 3 or 4 people deep. And, it's amazing. I mean, I've trained, so I get random phone calls just out of the blue. Like, hey, you did so and so's roof a year ago. They're my buddy. They said you were great. Like that happens a lot.
Hmm.
And if you set the precedence that with your homeowner that, hey, I loved helping you. I want to help other people. Don't ever think I'm too busy for other people, friends, coworkers, whatever. One of the things that we did in the car business that I'm really a big proponent on is involving your customers in your goals. Like last year, and I've done it this year too. I was towards the end of the year. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to hit $1 million. I'm really close. I'm direct with people. I'm like, I've got $250,000 to go. Can you help me out? Anybody? That kind of stuff. And people want to help somebody win. It's just human nature. And if you involve your customers in your deal and just, tell them, if you're a nice guy, they're going to help you out. And I think that's a really missed thing in this world. People preach, you find damage, go to the house on the left, house on the right. But, you got to really make yourself referable and just, you got to be that Johnny on the spot,
What about taking that? Have you ever taken it a step further? Right. Hey, my goal is $1 million this year. I'm here. I want to get there. Have you ever told them your why along with it?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I have a pretty unique relationship with a majority of my customers. Like I'm not here's my professional life and here's my home life guy. I'm just not that way. I talk about my family, my dogs, things I'm trying to do. I was telling customers I was going to this commercial training thing, I kind of involve my customers in most aspects of my life. So no, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think that would be a great. Just imagine if you were to say to someone at the kitchen table versus, hey, do you know anyone else that might need my help? Right.
Yeah.
I love the way that you flipped it around. My revenue goal is this year, or my goal is this year. I need to fill that gap. But what
Sure.
if you told them, my goal this year is to save up enough money for a down payment to buy a house.
Sure.
I'm this far away, right?
Yeah.
Like now they can be invested in your purchase of a house, really. And if they like you, man,
sure.
they're definitely not sending you that list of people that they just want to get you out of their life, right?
Sure.
Hey, yeah, call these people. I don't really like them, so call them. They're going to send you to the people that you may actually need your help, man. I think that's so awesome.
I think another thing, just before you close that out, is not only make yourself referable and kind of set that narrative that you want those, but kind of coach people on what you're looking for. Because and this is a lesson I hit my head against the wall because I didn't know, when I was first asking, not so much on knocking neighbors' doors and stuff, but just asking, I got a lot of 1-year-old roofs, and I tell people straight up, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for, and I'll use examples that, of experience, I've even had, 7-8-year-old roofs that looked fine from the ground and they had, potential leaks, that could be a problem that I solve. I try to set that tone so it's easier for them to put somebody in that spot.
So to make their referral more valuable by giving them criteria within that referral. Hey, your friend that just built that new house in that nice new neighborhood and it's a brand new build, that may not be the person to refer. I would like you to refer me this person that has this criteria. They are more likely to need my help. So, getting to the people that need your help more often, that's awesome, man. That is a great way to think about it.
Yeah. And I try to make it easy for people too.
Yeah.
I try to tell people, one thing I'm a real big proponent of is telling people, and I want you to talk to these people before
Yeah, before you send me these people, have a conversation with them, right?
yeah,
Let them know that I'm coming over, right? Let them know that I'm
right.
going to be what I'm going to help, what I can help them with. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it more comfortable for them too, so they're not like getting phone calls at 10 o'clock. Why is this roofer calling me?
That's
Like,
right. That's right. So now, I always, we, from our agency, we're dealing with the owners more often than we are with the salespeople,
sure.
right? And so I always, and I just, it just, it's something that I think about a lot. And from being a salesperson, maybe you could shed some light on it, or maybe help some owners out. Um, a lot of times there seems to be a disconnect between the sales people's goals and the company goals.
Sure.
And so first off, let's talk about from a salesperson's perspective. What would you be looking for in a company? Not that you're looking to change, because Equity Builders is a great place to work, but if you were, right, like if you were someone that was like, hey, I'm looking to make a change, I want to look for these certain things.
I'd say the first thing I look for in any sales position is culture. You can kind of feel, if you've been in any sales for any period of time, you can kind of feel people out and kind of feel their personalities out. I could tell I wasn't across the table from the guy that's going to tell me everything I wanted to hear. And that was important to me. Look for good company culture, support. There's like so much in this industry is like, all right, there's your t-shirts and your business cards. Go get them, Tiger, and like, there's going to be turnover in sales, but like, I think early on that whole support thing is really like, it's critical. I mean, like I would ask those questions, like what kind of support, in our world, will you go to adjuster meetings with me? Will you, jump on some roofs, show me how to inspect, how to do the paperwork, all those things. And then kind of lastly, just knowing expectations in regards to what they want from you as far as, production, schedule, whatnot, because those are all going to vary. So those expectations and knowing those things as far as goals and whatnot. And then the other is like, where's the company at? Are they wanting to stay here? Are they wanting to, is there an end goal and how do we get there kind of thing? And knowing, the owner mindset, I guess, is important too.
So if your salespeople have bigger goals than really what you have, that might be an issue. But also, if you have bigger goals than what's fit into that, what fits into that umbrella, if you add up the goals of your team and they don't add up to your goals, that's a whole nother challenge on the other side of that, right?
Sure.
And so you talked a little bit about culture too. But what things within the company culture are attractive to you?
Well, availability of resources. When you're green as grass and you don't know nothing, it's really hard to, rocket ship, ahead and do well when you don't have, when you, like, I can call my owner any time of the day. I call him at midnight and he would answer the phone. That's awesome. Some people would be like, oh, it's past 6 p.m. I don't care about you. Like it's, that's a big deal. Having support, as far as development and getting better at things, getting your job scheduled, if you're struggling with stuff, a positive environment, which doesn't seem like, it should be, it's an expectation, but in sales, like I worked at dealerships where we called meetings beatings because it was the 12 p.m. beating, because every day it was, 30 minutes of telling us how we suck and what we did wrong. And then, the last minute and a half was, all right, now go sell. It's like, what? You just told us we suck for 30 minutes. And now you're like, oh, well, go make us money. Like, how could, but there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of like really like twisted, bad, like management and stuff. And I've been blessed because I don't have that problem. We've had a good culture, good family first environment. I tell you the thing that the most impressive thing my owner said to me in the beginning, like the first time I met the guy, was, hey, I understand you have a life and things that are way more important than me and my business. And and I don't want you to shy away from that. As long as you're productive and doing what you're supposed to do, I don't care if you work 3 hours a day or 15, as long as you're getting things done. And that was like music to my ears. It was like fireworks shooting off in the background, birds flying everywhere. I'm like, did he just say I can have a life outside of work and it's okay and he'll still pay me? Like, hello, like that's I don't need to be micromanaged. And he, if he was on this with me, he would say the same thing. He tells all the new people, he's like, if I could have 10 Alexes that I never have to worry about being self-motivated and just doing their job, I would be a rich man, I love that. Like, I don't get 6 million phone calls a day. Hey, did you do 5 million door knocks today? Like, I don't get any of that. And you should let your people, if a guy's doing well, and don't poke the bear, man, leave them alone, let them do their thing.
It's a big thing out in the tech industry now. I have a cousin that works out in Silicon Valley, and then we they call it unlimited time off, right? You have unlimited time off. There is no days off, days on. It's just, you have unlimited time off, but we have these expectations of you, right? If you're around in that the third quarter with $250,000 in the of production in the pipeline, and your goal was 1 million, you expressed a goal of 1 million, and you're not doing the activities that would lead to that. Hey, somebody might need to make a phone call to you. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody might need to sit you down about this unlimited time off kind of thing. Work the hours that you need to work, because something is broken in that process, whether it's your sales process, the activities that you're doing, or whatever that is. So that's great. Culture, support, and anything else that you want to add to that for owners that they could kind of focus on in their companies to help their salespeople stay in alignment with the company goals?
The guy who's the VP of this company, the guy that I'm friends with, is some people will call it micromanagement. It's really not for me. Like, he asked me, what I'm looking to accomplish on any given day. He doesn't set the tone for me. He lets me do it. That kind of support and just keeping your sales guy engaged. You don't really have to smack him around and tell him, hey, you got to go do this. It's, but keeping them engaged, keeping things in front of them, I think is important, because it's really easy, if you get a big paycheck or whatever, to get off track a little bit, or if you're having a bad day, and for me, like it's not a babysitting thing. It's just somebody else being like, hey, this is what you're trying to do, you know, tell me what you're trying to, how you're trying to do that. It may give me a little bit of feedback here or there, but somebody there to kind of be your accountability is good. I mean, that's a really good support for me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, I think we've covered a lot today. We've covered a lot.
Oh yeah.
This is really the framework that you've put together within your manual, and just to express those key metrics that someone can follow, and then breaking down the activities, beyond that. I think that's going to help a lot of contractors, a lot of salespeople out there succeed and hit their goals in the future. Thanks for your time today, Alex. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors: How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.